is. Well, I think it's 9:30. We have quorum, and we'll just check that quorum. So we'll call the meeting to order, and let's do a round. Councillor Brockington.
Good morning, I'm here.
Councillor Cloutier, I see you.
Morning.
Councillor Dudas.
I'm here.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor Leeper.
Good morning.
Councillor Moffat.
No.
Councillor Suds.
Morning.
And Councillor Tierney.
Yep.
Okay, they'll be here. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 1 through 6 on today's agenda. For the items just mentioned, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the local planning appeal tribunal if council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of receipt of the application for zoning and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council on April 14th, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. And if any of you have any motions that you haven't put forward, please do so we can have a look at them. And I think I forgot to call you Vice Chair Gower, but I see you here. All right, any declarations of interest today? I see that Councillor Tierney has joined us as well. Hi, Tim. None? Confirmation of minutes from the meeting of 39 on March 25th, 2021. Any changes or are they carried?
Carried.
Good, thanks. Okay, so we'll just go through the consent agenda, see what we can clear up. Item number 1 is the City of Ottawa zoning bylaw 2008-250 technical anomalies infill and R4 phase 2. We have Murray Chown here to speak on behalf of GOBA, and we also have a technical amendment. So we'll hang on to that for a minute. Next up is 331 Cooper Street. It's a zoning bylaw amendment. We don't have anyone speaking in opposition. We do have the councillor, the happy councillor, Catherine McKenny. And we have speaking on behalf of Fotan, Kirsten and Timothy. So anyone have any questions for the applicant? No? And so, Catherine, because you're here, did you want to say something on this one?
Sure, just very quickly. Thanks, Chair. And yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that this is an example of the type of development that we want to see in Centertown. It's mostly, for the most part, underused office space that's being converted into residential units, and that's what that's a type of new housing that we like to see, because it happens quickly and it can be more affordable, if you will. I've gone back and forth with the applicant, and we will, through site plan, look at increasing the bike parking, but overall, I just want to say that I am supportive, and that I would. Anyone out there is listening, I'd like to see more of this. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much. And so Kirsten and Timothy, do you need to speak if we're prepared to carry this item?
Hello.
You are Kirsten, Timothy?
Chair Harder, no, we don't need to speak to this item if you're prepared to carry it. Thank you.
Perfect. Welcome, Councillor Moffat. So on the zoning bylaw amendment for 331 Cooper Street, carried?
Carried.
The next one is zoning bylaw amendment 250 City Center Avenue. We do not have anybody registered to speak, either delegation for or against or the applicant. But Councillor Leeper, you wanted to say a few things, a few words?
Yep, thank you very much, Chair. I'll speak for Catherine and myself, are supportive of this. There has been an issue that has arisen from those commercial operations, restaurant operations in City Center. They've got some refrigeration units and HVAC equipment that sends some disruptive noise across the tracks to the townhomes that are on the Hintonburg side. I just wanted to flag with the city that that's an issue that we need to address over the next little while. It was an issue a couple of years ago. We thought we had it addressed, but otherwise the Hintonburg Community Association just wanted me to raise that, but they chose not to make a delegation today.
Good, thank you. It's, probably some baffle boards or something like that could help out with it. Okay, so on the item, the zoning bylaw amendment for 250 City Center Avenue, is that item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Thank you. The next item is the zoning bylaw amendment, 1010 and 1012 Byron Avenue, 117 and 121 Lockhart Avenue, and 2123 and 2129 Honeywell Avenue. We have only the applicant here. Does anyone have any questions on this item? No? So,
Chair,
yeah,
I just
yes.
want to say that I appreciate that the applicant had reached out to the community ahead of time. So a lot of things got smoothed out in terms of issues. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Cavan, I didn't see your hand there. Nico Church and Paul Black are here on behalf of FOTEN. Do you need to speak if we're prepared to carry this item, either of you?
No need to speak, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So on the item, the zoning bylaw amendment for 1010 and 1012 Byron Avenue, 117 and 121 Lockhart Avenue, and 2123 and 2129 Honeywell Avenue, is that item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Thank you. The next item is the zoning bylaw amendment for 963 Hare Avenue. This is also in Councillor Kavanaugh's ward. We do have representation from the applicant. Does anyone have any questions on this item at 963 Hare Avenue? So we have Jacob Pollowin from, he's an associate at Gowling, and Ryan Bolton from Novatech. Do either of you need to speak if we're prepared to carry this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, so colleagues, on the zoning bylaw amendment for 963 Hare Avenue, is it carried?
Carried.
Carried, thank you. Item number 6 is the zoning bylaw amendment for 353, 357 Gardner Street. We do have a delegation, Chris Greenshields from the vice president of the Vanier Community Association. He wants to speak. We also have speakers on behalf of the applicant led by Jan Paquette. So we'll hold this item. And we'll go back to the first item that was held and invite Mr. Chown to speak for his 5 minutes. But before that, I'm going to have Vice Chair Gower introduce the technical amendment that is on this item regarding garage setbacks in mature neighborhoods. Vice Chair Gower?
Yes, okay. So whereas a technical amendment to a provision in document 2, details of recommended zoning of the report, is required to clarify the intent of the proposed amendment. Therefore, be it resolved that the words "despite subsection 139(3)(a)(2) be added to the beginning of subsection 139(3)(b) immediately prior to the words "the garage or carport may not be more than 0.6 meters closer," etc., in column 2 of the table in document 2 of the report. And be it further resolved that no further notice be provided pursuant to subsection 3417 of the Planning Act.
Thank you for introducing that. Okay, so Murray, I do see you in Hollywood Squares somewhere. Where'd you go? There you are.
I'm here, Madam Chair, and thank you very much, and I will be very brief. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank planning staff for recognizing that there were a number of what you might call errors or flaws or points of clarification that were required to the amendments for both the infill amendments and the R4 amendments that were passed by council last fall, and moving quickly to try to address those so that we could clean the bylaw up and it would be a more functional bylaw moving forward. Secondly, I want to acknowledge that the report before you today gives effect to a settlement that was negotiated between the Greater Ottawa Home Builders Association and staff on an appeal that we had filed with respect to the infill amendments. And it will be helpful for everybody to have that matter resolved as quickly as possible. Lastly, though, I do want to just make the observation that I don't think the bylaw is perfect. I do anticipate that we will continue to identify details of the bylaw that may need to be tweaked going forward. So planning committee shouldn't be surprised to see possibly another amendment like this coming forward down the road once we've all had a little bit more time to work with the bylaw. The ink is still wet. We're still getting used to it. We're still processing applications. We're still dealing with the intricacies of the bylaw. So as I said, it won't surprise me if there isn't another report like this down the road. But for now, thank you very much to staff for dealing with a number of items as quickly as they have. And it'll be nice to have them tidied up. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Murray. Anyone have any questions for Murray? No? Well, thank you for that recognition of the work the staff has done. I know that, you know, the City of Ottawa and the staff in particular on the infills and mature neighborhoods and the whole, that whole package of work that we've done over the last years have really been, you know, leading in Ontario. And I thank them and yourself representing the industry for all the work that's been done. And can't go without saying the councillors that are most effective, 4 of them, I think in particular, I know that they and their community associations, the FCA, under the leadership of Sheila Perry, put in a lot of time. And I thank them as well. Okay, so on the technical amendment, is it carried? Carried. And on the item as amended, the City of Ottawa zoning bylaw, technical anomalies, infill, and R4 phase 2, carried as amended, carried.
Carried.
Thanks very much, everybody. So we're going to our last item that was held. Zoning bylaw amendment 353 to 357 Gardner Street. It's in Councillor Fleury's ward. I see Councillor Fleury is here. And our first delegation is Chris Greenshields. As I said, he's the Vice President of Vanier Community Association. Chris?
Thank you, Madam.
Where are you?
Good, I'm very good. I just had my shot yesterday.
Did you?
It went very well. Thank you, Madam Chair. The VCA has submitted detailed comments and participated in the public consultations on this application. We do continue to have reservations. The VCA also wants to bring to the committee's attention that this project is one of many in Vanier's western sector, what I call the Ring of Fire, with new buildings and residential conversions representing more than 2,300 new residential units and an estimated 4,000 new residents in quite a small area. These will have significant traffic, shadowing, and other impacts, and we are concerned about the lack of planning to take into account their overall impact. This site is a complex one, certainly for a development of this scale. The Montreal Road District Secondary Plan applies a number of important policy directions. Under the plan, height limits are specified at 6 stories for small lots such as this. While the zoning permits 25 meters, one would have expected at least a step back at the 6th floor to promote human scale at the street level. proposed rezoning to allow an additional story to 29 meters, which with the penthouse amounts to 10 stories, is excessive without further setback or other mitigation. VCA also argued that the development should complement the other three corners of the MacArthur-Vanier Parkway intersection, a major intersection under the secondary plan, maintain the public realm at the four corners, and the intersection modified to meet policy directions for major intersections under the secondary plan. Both the developer and the VCA proposed that the corner pork chop adjoining the development be eliminated to mitigate the development's impact and lack of step back, and to increase safety as per the secondary plan. The VCA hopes city staff will ensure compliance with the plan, which will also better situate this development. On Gardner, the project would better integrate with the residential streetscape with further setback, and the buildings transition to the existing two-story buildings to the rear, to the north, is inadequate. Rear yard balconies should be eliminated to maintain privacy for the adjacent residents. Ground floor commercial at this key site is needed. As the UDRP pointed out, such use is essential to promote MacArthur as an active traditional main street. VCA welcomes the city's intent to conduct a design study for MacArthur. All we can say at this point is better late than never. Finally, Vanier risks losing a heritage building. I don't think it's referred to in the report. We ask that the city's heritage authorities to consider with the applicant how the building can be preserved through relocation. VCA expects to continue consultations regarding the site plan control process and the enhancement of the development at the ground level. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. Any questions for Chris? I've noted too that you've given, or your community association has given quite extensive comments within the report as well. So thank you for that. Councillor Fleury, questions for Chris?
No question to staff.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chris. And we'll go to, we have the applicant here, so we'll hang on to your question for staff until after that. So the applicant is, as I said, represented by Jan Paquette, Rosalind Hills here, and from Longwood Building Corporation, Guy Wissel and Florent Filion. So Dan?
Yes.
Do you, yeah, hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for receiving this application. And we are with our team this morning. We have our architect, Rosalind Hill, and as you said, the owner, Guy Wissel, is here, and the development manager, Flo Filion. So what I'd like to do, and I wasn't sure how this would play out this morning. I guess I'm accustomed to the old style where staff does the presentation and sets the context and all that stuff. So what we'll do, given that we went straight into the delegations, if I may, I want to be able to respond to a lot of the points that the community association has made. We have worked with them. We think we have some nice answers to a lot of their questions, but you'll be the judge of that. But before I get into the planning stuff, I'd like to get a context put on the table, which is best articulated by the designer. So I'm going to ask Rosalind, if I may, Madam Chair, speak to the actual design, and then I'd like to come back to me and address some of the planning comments, if that's possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I saw Rosalind there in the room.
Hi.
Hi, over to you now, Rosalind.
Okay, thank you. Again, we weren't exactly sure how things would play out today. So I've got a slide deck that's numbered, and I'm hoping that the person who's driving can flip forward to slides by number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why don't we just start with some context? If we go to slide 3. Right, so this is the intersection of Vanier Parkway and MacArthur, and I think we're all familiar with it and some of the challenges that exist at this intersection. So it's a very pedestrian unfriendly place with the pork chops that were referred to. And I think everybody agrees that it's not a great pedestrian space. It was really designed for cars at a time when we really celebrated streets and cars, and that's not where we're at now. And one can imagine that at some point the city will put it into their work plan to reinvent this intersection, and that would be fantastic. But what we have to work with right now is a fairly pedestrian hostile situation. And if you look to the building to the right, so on the northeast corner of the Vanier Parkway, it's an office building with an attempt at some pedestrian space out in front with a big sculptural flower pot. On the south east corner, there's some residential towers, and I believe they're 17-story. Someone can correct me if that's incorrect. With a big retaining wall at the street level, so that it's quite a hostile kind of pedestrian scenario there. And then on the other corner, we've got the sprawling parking lot of the Loblaws. You can see the triangular block. This photo is a little bit out of date. My clients are right now building on that triangle at Montgomery and MacArthur. And if we go back to the first slide, you'll see the building that's being added there. So what we're hoping is that with the cumulative effect as this area gets built out will be actually a wild improvement on what we have now, starting to frame the street rather than frame it with retaining walls and parking lots, but to have buildings with clear base features that provide a shape to the pedestrian space, to carve out space for pedestrians on sidewalks that feels safer, using planter boxes, changes of grade, and a column feature. So as we go through, I'll show you those things. So I think we all know it well enough. So I'm going to skip over the photos of the area. If you go to the site plan on slide 2, it's falling off the bottom of my screen. Can you scroll down? There we go. Perfect. Okay, so this is the building that we're proposing. And obviously it's a very strange block or piece of property with frontage on 3 sides. So when we looked at this property, we thought, okay, how can we do something that's most appropriate, that puts active, interesting pedestrian space on MacArthur and respects the green parkway kind of character of the Vanier Parkway? So we've got plantings along the Vanier Parkway side. This drawing just shows the trees, but I'll bring you to the landscaping later, in order to have that green corridor effect on that side. We've got lots of pedestrian activity on the MacArthur side and at the corner facing the pork chop, which we hope one day might not be a pork chop. And you'll also see on this plan, leading toward the pork chop, there's a little circle, a little gray circle in between some boulders. That is a column that we're proposing on the right-of-way space, and our canopy would fly out over the right-of-way space. And city planning staff have agreed to let us encroach that way. The idea is to really reach out into the intersection and make this a pedestrian place that's welcoming to pedestrians, and to build into that future that we know is coming, where this intersection will be more for people. You'll see an entrance on the Gardner Street side. So for all practical purposes right now, people are going to be coming and going on the Gardner Street side, and we want to make that a really great place too. But we've got an entrance on at the intersection of Vanier and MacArthur, because we're trying to make that a great place. And it will be used, that door, because people are going to want to get across to the grocery store and come out to the bus stop and stuff. And over time, it will be used more and more as it becomes feeling more like a primary entrance, and that intersection becomes a great place.
Rosalind?
So, yes.
I just wanted to advise you, you've used up your 5 minutes, but this is the way that we're going to, so it's important that you pick up speed. But
Okay.
you know, Jan has only spoken for a shorter period of time. So I'm going to let you continue on, but I would suggest that, you know.
2 minutes and I'll be done.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Well, because you have other people signed up here, so I have to treat everybody the same way. And I think it's important that you've laid this out so well, because I noticed that people are watching with real attention, because it's nice to see something that's different and treating for a future pedestrian focus, as opposed to, you know, often what we are dealing with. So go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so if you flip forward to slide 6, we're working with the context of low-scale residential in the block behind us, but this slide shows what the zoning envelopes are for the future. So we want to think about what's appropriate now, but we also want to think about what's appropriate in the future. Next slide. These images are of the MacArthur Street face and the pedestrian features that we are proposing to build in here. And so there's sidewalk space, and in response to the UDRP comments, we're adding a whole lot more green than what you see in these images. So all in front of those planter boxes is all going to be greened out now. And so there's green space up to the sidewalk, but also there's pedestrian space behind the trees in a walkway adjacent to the building, so that there's sort of 2 places that you can walk. And one is sort of feel safe and next to the building with these bench windowsills to really welcome people to kind of move through the space and enjoy it in different ways. There's also a bicycle repair station along this side outside. And behind those windows is a bike repair space inside with a brightly colored wall. And behind that brightly colored wall is the bike storage. But it's really kind of celebrating bikes here and making a place for bikes in the front of the building. And for those kinds of activity spaces that have to do with bikes. Next slide, please. This is the Gardner Street side. So this door is a primary entrance. And then on the image top left, the right-hand door, double door is into the bike room. So it's really makes the use of bikes very convenient. And next slide. Here you see the corner element. And on the bottom right, you see the canopy that comes out into the public realm. And the idea, it makes that space feel safer for people and also kind of welcomes you in. Next slide. This is a view coming along the Vanier Parkway. So starting at the top, you're quite a distance from our building, and then you approach it. And you can see the effect that right now there's that green buffer on the left. And as you approach it, we are going to continue the green buffer in front of our building. But you can see how distinct this building is visually as you move along the Vanier Parkway. And so that's why it's been designed with this strong vertical element that draws the eye, and contrasting colors that are interesting at a distance, as well as pedestrian friendly up close. Next slide, please. Actually, you can skip on to the last slide, slide 17. And this shows the landscaping. This is up to date with all of the landscaping on the MacArthur side in front of the trees that are in planter boxes. We're proposing to plant trees, not just on our property, but on the Gardner Street side, in order to reclaim or sort of imply ownership of some of the city land that is to the left of our building here, that is quite misused right now. People tend to dump garbage there. It's a bit of a no man's land. So the idea is that if we tree it and make it interesting and make it look as though it belongs kind of to the building, and give it some loving care, that people will behave better there. And then you see also on the right-hand side along the Vanier Parkway, not just trees, but all sorts of bushes. Those are rose bushes. Mathieu Fleury, you had asked that we plant lots of bushes that take up space. Those are prickly rose bushes, so they will prevent loitering along there. And
Rosalind,
thank you.
yeah, you've gone way over now, and I need to leave some time for Dan to explain. But Jeff, do you have a question for Rosalind, or can you wait till after Dan speaks?
It's for Rosalind, but I'm happy to wait.
Okay, so let's go over. Thank you, Rosalind. Over to you, Dan. You have a
Okay,
couple of minutes, so.
Okay,
Get to the punch.
I will be brief. You know, the first thing, is this the right place for a little bit of extra height? Again, 8 stories are permitted on this site. The ask is for a 9th floor. From a pure planning perspective, the way I looked at it, and this is even before I looked at any of the planning documents, because when I'm asked to do these jobs, I kind of, it has to pass my own personal sniff test. And so basically, I generally was aligned with it because what I see on this intersection are very tall buildings on the southeast corner, 18 stories in height. I see on the northeast corner a brand new office building, which I think is roughly 10 floors, but it's a glass building. It's hard to say. I know it's got a permission for 42 meters. And then I look at the Loblaw site, and I'm going to call it one day there's going to be a proposal for that corner, and they're going to put something there. So from a pure planning point of view, I've always liked the idea of announcing volume and massing and a little bit more height at major intersections. It tends to define edges. So it checks off that box. From a policy point of view, I went through the secondary plan, and Chris is right. There's references to 6 floors, but the way it happens is this. I went through that secondary plan. There's west sector policy, and there's interior of west sector policies. And the west sector policies do govern, they basically say anything that's got frontage on a main street, traditional main street, can go from 6 to 18 floors, depending on lot size and frontage of the property. Now, in this case here, I spoke to the author of that secondary plan, Melanie Knight, at the very beginning, before we made any application. I said, do we need to file for an official plan amendment application? She said, no, you don't, because when they did the secondary plan, they said this property was an anomaly because it doesn't have what they call normal traditional Main Street frontage. That is, the access for 357 Gardner is off Gardner Street, which is therefore kind of an internal lot. So the advice I was given is that, hey, this doesn't trigger an OPA because really it's not intended to be affected by the traditional Main Street policies of the secondary plan, given the configuration of the lot. So I said, well, what does apply is the interior of the west sector policies, which don't deal with height, rather they deal with transition to low rise. So on that issue, the design, is going to be the design is been massaged to deal with the transition. We do recognize there's 2.5-story structures to the north. And the way the design's been massaged is that we've pushed the main building back, the main wall back on the north side to 4 meters. So there's a 4-meter space there on the north side to the nearest next property where the ramp to the garage is going to be proposed. So there's spacing there. And then the other thing we did with the design is that the 9-story is only an ask for the south part of the building, albeit the largest part. So it basically is going to step down. So 9 floors, you punch up 9 floors to the corner, you step down to 8, which is the permitted height today. And so that's how we're playing out the transition. We'll also add, Chris said, balconies. From the first cut, we reduced the number of balconies on the north side to address that issue. And the other thing I'll add is that, so transition's always tough, right? You've got this built condition on the north side. Well, what's going to happen in the fullness of time is that the north side also enjoys the same 8-story height restriction as does these properties. So in theory, as the zoning permits it, There may well be an 8-story building to the north of us in the fullness of time, which will make the transition absolutely seamless. So those are my observations on basic planning, policy
Okay.
stuff, and the
Okay,
transition.
we're gonna go to questions now.
Thank you.
I've given you guys a lot of runway here.
Thank you.
There's no witnesses to call me out on it. So, all right, so Councillor Leeper. And also we have Simon Giecco as here on behalf of staff. If you have any questions, I might as well pull them together. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks. So Rosalind, I guess on the south face on MacArthur, I'm comparing this building to some recent buildings in Hintonburg, Taggart's building on Wellington with the Stella and the new grocery. And the success of that building was a change in materials for the first couple of floors and then a step back. I don't see that here. It seems to rise 9 stories on that face without any relief for the pedestrian realm. Is it not possible, or is this a deliberate choice? Is it an economic or a budgetary decision on your part? Because I think if it's going to be pedestrian friendly, that you need to break that up a little bit. And I know site plan isn't in front of us, and I don't take any issue with the zoning exception. But since we've seen it, I just wanted to raise that.
Okay, that's a great question. Is my speaker on? Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, and that is one comment we got from UDRP as well. And as a result, they actually had a specific suggestion, which was to change the color of part of our base, which we have done. So we've got a bit more contrast now. Those were the UDRP images that you just saw. And so the scenario here is that the hydro wires are running across there, and we have to be set back because of the hydro wires. And they're quite high voltage. So we found that when we tried to step the building out, when we sort of try to negotiate that with masons, they get very worked up. They don't want to work that closely under those wires. And so instead we said, okay, well, if we can't bring that out, and we don't want to just keep endlessly pushing the building back, the idea is to frame the street. And the zoning actually suggests we should be closer to the street than that, except that there are wires, therefore we have to be back. And so instead, we propose those 2-story windows and then a canopy above them. And those 2-story windows are of a different pattern work on the windows to set them apart from the rest of the field above. And they're deeply recessed. So they're about 2 feet deep with pilasters, and then benches at the bottom of on the window sills, so that though we can't come out, there's a real sense of depth, and there's a carving out of people space into those windowsill places to make that read as much like a people space as we possibly can, given our site constraints.
But why not step the tower portion back another 1.5 meters after, the 2nd or 3rd floor, in order to create some articulation there?
Yeah, so then I think it's just the balance between the value of articulation and the idea. One of the problems of the intersection is that it's so sprawling and so spread out. We felt that it was an appropriate kind of balance to say, no, it doesn't actually help to just make the buildings even further away. What we're going to do is we're going to put the building as close as we can to the wires, and then do everything we can to articulate those lower 2 floors, to animate them, to make them feel different, and to make them relate to pedestrians at a pedestrian level and a pedestrian scale.
Okay, well, it's a discussion that as you continue through site plan, I'm sure Councillor Fleury will continue to work through with you. And then the second question, I guess, is for Dan and for Rosalind. I come back to Chris's comment with respect to activating MacArthur with more active street frontage in the form of retail. Is that just not a viable option here? Because it would be more interesting than just a residential face.
If I may, through you, Madam Chair. So basically, the R5 does permit some commercial uses, and the ground floor right now is intended to accommodate a quasi-commercial use where we're going to be storing some bikes. We're going to maybe have we're looking at the option of maybe looking at a bike repair facility, if you wish, or a store. At the end of the day, the ground floor does permit some commercial, and even though the car access, right, is from Gardner, there might be an opportunity in the fullness of time to accommodate some of the permitted commercial uses within that zone on the ground floor.
I'm a quiet advocate for bike infrastructure, so I certainly I like that. But you know, this is a corner that's crying out for a bookshop or a coffee shop or something that's going to become the first step in making it a more interesting traditional main streets. And I hope that you'll ensure the design is flexible enough to incorporate proper retail at some point down the road.
I could
I'll leave it
respond
there.
to that
Oh, thanks, Rosalind.
if you want.
Sure, please.
Yeah, we've absolutely made sure that the design is flexible that way. That the bike repair area with the bike storage behind it. The bike storage at some point could be relocated within the building if we wanted to open up more space there for retail. And right now it's not business-wise. There aren't opportunities. There isn't somebody looking for retail space there. But we've absolutely wanted to make sure that it's possible. And you can get to that space accessibly. So there's a grade change, but we've also made sure that in the layout of the property, you can get into that front space, the bike space as well, up a ramp. So.
Okay. Chair, that's it. Thank you. Thank you both.
Your microphone, Chair.
I said Councillor Fleury for questions and wrap up, please. You're the only.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Madam Chair. And my comments aren't to the applicant, or questions aren't to the applicant. They're to Simon. First off, want to thank the applicant. There is the Longwoods development as a recent building been put up at the end of Montgomery and Mayfield and MacArthur. So we're excited about the occupancy coming in and what that will do to the community. So this is neighboring to the site. I want to raise a number of points. There's just so much happening, and Simon Diaco could speak to the number of applications we have along Montreal Road and along MacArthur Avenue. It's exciting to see, but we have to make sure that we do it right, and that's, I think, what the community association is reaffirming once again. I want to raise a couple of questions that I have. So, Simon, there was a number of points that were made relating to existing heritage building. I know that Ashley had done a review. Can you maybe comment on that? And I don't know if Ashley's with us. And then the other one on the commercial, just we know that we've heard from the BIA on the street on a number of applications along MacArthur where the commercial space wants to be solidified. So could you maybe speak in terms of how you see that through our policy and specifically for this application?
Thank you. So on the first point of heritage, the property on the site is not a designated building, so there is no affirmed protection under the Ontario Heritage Act. It's not a designated building. It's on the heritage reference list. So the applicant team is aware of that, and they will just be required to provide proper notification before the home is removed, which is intended for this application. So again, to the heritage issue, we have a path forward. On the commercial, as you heard from Rosalind and Dan, the R5 parent zone, which again this project this is reestablishing the residential zone provision that was always intended through the secondary plan process. there are built-in permissions for non-residential uses. So we have that design flexibility through Roslyn. I think it's a reasonable approach, and the forethought has been put into that ground floor that in the fullness of time, when that need is there, that capacity is there, to see a commercial use, it could be facilitated in the ground floor of that building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for clarifying both those points. The other one is the applicant, the BIA, the community, and myself were in favor of changes to the Vanier Parkway. There's like that on-flow ramp onto MacArthur. Can I just understand what are our authorities under the application to get those design changes, or if not, how is it, you know, punted into the infrastructure team at the city to seriously contemplate? Because Roslyn made the point that, you know, the property could have looked very different if that additional park or private pop space could have been created.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, that intersection, as Roslyn took us through, is a very complicated intersection. It's four-legged, each with a pork chop and a merge channel. I mean, fundamentally, this application hasn't triggered any roadway modifications to facilitate it. Everything for vehicular access is in the internal streets along Gardner. So we're not seeing a requirement in their transportation study that says modifications are required to facilitate this development.
No. And Simon, like, before you go on talking about the road, and that really isn't part of this application at all. Interesting, Councillor Fleury, but I see that Chair of Transportation, Councillor Tierney's going, what? What's he talking about this? That was yesterday's committee. Do you have any questions on the application?
No, I just wanted to understand, Madam Chair, when there is an application and we can, you know, when we have everyone on board, it's different if not everyone's on board, but how would we go around providing a road modification? I guess they're called RMAs or such. And I think Simon was explaining, from what I understand, that the vehicular access to the site, because it's internal to the community, is a bit different. But am I hearing, Simon, that if it was through the MacArthur entrance or Vanier Parkway, that we would have had an additional opportunity along there?
Thank you. Potentially we would have. The idea or the intent of a traffic study is to outline what modifications, if any, are needed to ensure safe turning movements and access. We don't have that in this case. They're quite well contained on their site, and we have no concerns from a traffic impact perspective. But I mean, to Chris's point and yourself, Councillor, there is certainly a policy direction for that intersection. It's clear in the secondary plan, but that intersection needs to be looked at holistically, because, as I was saying earlier, given the Vanier Parkway's function north-south and the various intersections and the type of infrastructure that's there, be it the merge channels and turning lanes, you can't simply start to look at removing one of those legs. It would create a functional nightmare. As well as Roslyn pointed out, there's such a high level of infrastructure above ground, unfortunately, in the form of the utility poles that her masons are trying to work around, that intersection needs to go through a much larger detailed process. I would suggest that it be city initiated.
This is not the process, time, or place to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Fleury, do you have anything on the application that's before us? You like it, you don't like it?
I'm just looking for clarity. So there's a number of applications in the area, and I'm just looking when there are elements that are.
Then I suggest you put an inquiry in, and if they're about roads, I suggest you might want to do that through the Transportation Committee. You can do it through this committee, and we'll get a response to all of that for you.
Okay. So I guess, so I don't know where to go. So you want me to write an inquiry at the end of, for the end of committee? Is that what you're proposing?
I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that what the questions you're asking now are not tied into this specific development. They're much larger for discussion. And so, you know, Simon's here to speak to the application before us. The delegations here to speak to the application before us. We're here as the planning committee to receive that and debate it and vote on it. and not on all the rest.
Okay, I just think it's a unique opportunity where everyone's aligned, and it would have been offered an opportunity to improve the infrastructure. So rightly so, to Councillor Leeper's point, there are a few elements to work through site plan, and I know that I've conveyed and my community has conveyed those elements to Simon, and Simon's working with the applicant. So I'm confident that we can get those changes. And obviously it's interesting, a day after the hydro pole discussion on Hawthorne, that we're again on a main street talking about hydro poles and how there would have been additional opportunities here. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I see no other hands up. So on this item, is it carried? Just remind you, it's a zoning bylaw amendment for 353 to 357 Gardner Street. Carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Any notices of motion? Any inquiries?
Well, Madam Chair, I would have one here. I'm sorry, I'll send it in writing afterwards, but I can sort of read it out, say it out loud, which would be, what elements in a site plan or zoning review can implicate changes to a roadway when they are agreed upon by the city, the community, and a BIA in this case? I just want clarity on, in terms of the zoning engagement process, what elements are actually up for review. I'm confused about that.
Okay. But you're not suggesting that we're going to have a discussion about the Vanier Parkway and changes to it?
No, just general when there is a submission. No, just in general when there is a planning application.
So Ms. Sneddon, perhaps you could find the right person to respond to that inquiry.
Yes,
And
Madam Chair, we will formally respond to that.
Perfect, and certainly let Chair Tierney know about it in advance as well. Thank you. Any other business? The next meeting is the 22nd of April. We're going to start at 9 in the morning. After the meeting is over, 10 minutes after the meeting, CPSC committee meeting. I don't know how long either one of them will take. I don't think the planning committee is too long, and it'll depend on how many people sign up for the joint committee. So thank you all for your attention, and we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Enjoy the day.
Bye, everyone.